Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we have something special down here at Birdland this evening. A recording for Blue Note Records.
What's that?
Well, I didn't think I'd still be here touring with Us3, that's for sure. I mean, I didn't know. It was a rhetorical question, really. Yeah, I'm genuinely surprised that this has lasted for so long, really, and you know, the crowds have been really good on tour. It's not going to stop in the near future, you know. I think it's going to carry on, which is great. You know, I'm really happy about that.
Here we go. Off I take ya. Dip trip. Lip Fantasia.
Absolutely not. You know, when we made Cantaloupe, I just thought it was a kind of funky little club tune, really. And I never thought it was going to be a hit. The record company certainly didn't think it was going to be a hit. And it's kind of like one of those tunes that won't die, it won't go away. You know, even when we play it now, people still go crazy, and it's like 16 years after it first came out, which is a long time.
Come on, everybody.
Come in here and sway.
Everybody, come on, everybody.
Come in here and sway.
A long, long time ago, when I was a student, I used to be a DJ, and I started DJing in 1982, which was a long time ago. And at that time, I was playing kind of jazz funk things like Donald Byrd and Roy Ayers and things like that. And also, that was 1982 was a real pivotal year for hip-hop, when things like The Message, Grandmaster Flash came out, and a lot of new things. Hip-hop was just really starting to come through then. So as a DJ, I was playing all the import hip-hop 12 inches as well as the jazz funk stuff. And if you're playing kind of 70s Donald Byrd, you get inquisitive and look at his other albums, have a listen to his other albums, and it wasn't far back to him to, let's say, 10 years previous to see what he was doing then in the 60s. And that's how I started listening to it, really. It was one of those cases of looking at the albums, reading the sleeve notes and seeing who else played, like who's the pianist on that album, go and discover his albums, then find a sax player from that and go and discover his albums. So, and still at the same time as that was happening, as I was going back in discovering the jazz, there was more and more hip-hop coming out, and I was buying hip-hop as well, so I was kind of discovering both musics at the same time. Yeah, well, it actually took about 10 years before I put them together, so it was quite a long time. Well, I think when we started, that was one of the big things that I wanted to do, was sort of make jazz a bit more accessible to younger people. What I wanted for people, I didn't want to do it in a sort of preachy way, saying you've got to listen to this. Yeah, I wanted to sort of give people a key to the door and let them open the door and go in and discover whatever they wanted to discover. But I think now there's a lot of jazz that's become more infused in popular music. There's a lot of soul stuff and R&B that's influenced by jazz. I don't think it's seen as much of an old man's music as it was before. I think it's seen as a bit hipper now. There's a lot more younger people playing it as well, which is good. I think that's testament to the music, really, you know. You become friends with the people when they play on your record as well. So, but I think that people, you know, the musicians generally want to do this gig with the band because they get to. What I wanted to have as a band was a band where everyone is the star. You know, everyone's got their own solo spots, so they really get to blow. The musicians really get to solo in this band, which they like doing, obviously. We'll always play that. I think we'd be killed if we didn't play that on stage. Yeah, but then the rappers, because they get such a crazy reaction to it, they haven't got a problem doing it. You know, it's like they enjoy doing it. But who wouldn't?
Why y'all wanna stress me for? Can a young man have fun anymore? Been to more places than you ever saw.
It's pluses and minuses to it, really. Obviously, I've got a lower profile now. Yeah, I can't afford to do a big marketing campaign now in the same way that major labels do. But the first 10 years of my career, I only released 3 albums in 10 years. And that wasn't the fault of mine. That was because there were so many personnel changes within the companies that I was signed to that it was really frustrating for me. I was really like tearing my hair out, going mad. So when the opportunity came to leave and be independent, I thought I'd try it, thinking maybe I'll only do one independently or what, just see what happens. But it still sold quite well, and we did that was the first one, Questions, which was the first one I did independently, and then we did a huge tour in 2005 on the back of that, which we came to Wrocławiu then, and I just thought this is the way forward. It was a massive learning curve putting out the first one. You know, I made some mistakes and everything, but then you learn every time you do it. But since then, I've released, now with the new one, I've released, this is my 7th album. Only 3 of them are on major labels and 4 of them have been independent. So I've actually done more independent releases now. And I've done 4 since 2004, 4 in 5 years. So 3 in 10 years with major labels, 4 in 5 years on my own. And I've got nobody to answer to kind of now. I can just do whatever I want. So it's kind of much easier to get things done. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I haven't used any samples on any of the independent releases that I put out. That's also partly due to financial reasons and the time it takes to clear samples as well. It's a lot more expensive to clear them now. For example, the first album, obviously, every song had samples on. Some had like 2 or 3 on one track. And the third album only 6 songs had samples on. But the cost of clearing the samples on the third album was about 3 times as much as the first album. So record companies and publishing companies make it really hard to clear things now. Well, the crowds that we get, all the band have mentioned this on the tour. Everywhere that we've been on the tour, we've had a really huge cross-section of people come in. You know, we've had like, one thing that's been interesting this time around, maybe because of the length of time I've been doing this, we've had older people bringing their kids to the show, which is kind of weird. Like 2 generations of people, you know. So I think that's cool. But we've always had a mixed audience. So right from the start, we've had the sort of older jazz guys coming to check out the playing and everything, and you've had the younger hip-hop kids coming for the rap, you know, so that's good. I think that's healthy. If we go on for that long, it will be,
How about a big hand now?
Wait a minute.
One thing I've always liked to do, I'd like to do a kind of Us3 all-star album, you know, and use like vocalists that already have a name or some star jazz players on there. That would be a lovely thing to do, but with funding the album myself, I don't think I could afford to do that. You know, maybe I might be able to do a one-off deal with a label to do it, but somewhere along the line I'm determined to do that at some point in my career. Well, I've got a huge wish list of people, but, well, he's my number 1 really, as currently. You know, I really like all of his albums. In fact, on the way from Krakow this morning, I was listening to Hip Hop Is Dead and God's Son on my iPod, 2 of my favourite albums. I'd love to work with him. I'd walk across the Atlantic to get a chance to produce him. Actually, I met a guy from Belgium once who was a hip hop kid really, but in the early 90s, and he'd gone on to find Cantaloupe Island. Then he discovered some other Herbie Hancock albums, and he was kind of working his way from the 60s forward, and he'd got to just before the really funky kind of 70s stuff. So I was saying to him, keep going, man, because you won't believe what happens next. So that was good. It's great when you get feedback like that from people.